Commander Ryan Cole looked out from the observation deck of the starship Horizon as it drifted quietly above the blue curve of Earth. The stars stretched endlessly ahead, a reminder of how far humanity had come. For years, the people of Earth had worked to bring peace to the stars. They had built colonies, formed trade routes, and reached out to alien worlds with open hands. Ryan had always believed in that dream. He had fought in the early frontier wars when humans were still learning to survive in deep space, and he had seen what hatred could do. Peace, he thought, was the only way forward. Yet now, as the ship prepared for its mission to the Ethelium system, he felt a strange heaviness in his chest. Something about this journey felt different. Dr. Olivia Brooke stood beside him, her eyes fixed on the stars. She was the chief linguist of the mission, one of the best in the United Council for Interstellar Relations. She was calm and thoughtful, always careful with her words. Ryan respected her for that. She could understand languages that no machine could translate, and often found meaning where others saw only confusion. "Do you think they'll listen this time?" she asked quietly. Ryan hesitated before answering. "I don't know. The Zareth see things differently. They don't believe in peace the way we do. To them, mercy is weakness," Olivia sighed. "Then we'll just have to show them that mercy isn't weakness. It's strength." The Zareth were an old and powerful species, tall and reptilian with sharp eyes and voices like grinding metal. They ruled several star systems near the edge of known space. For years, Earth had tried to make peace with them, sending diplomats, scientists, and trade ships. Every time, talks had failed. The Zareth saw humans as soft creatures, always talking, never fighting. When a human trade convoy was attacked near their borders 2 months ago, the Council had hoped it was a mistake. They had sent Ryan's team to negotiate, to keep the peace one last time. As the Horizon entered the Ethelium system, the crew worked in silence. The mood was tense but hopeful. Captain Nora Kent, the ship's pilot, guided the vessel with steady hands. "We're approaching the Zareth's capital world," she said. "No signs of hostility so far." Ryan nodded. "Good, let's keep it that way." The ship descended through the thick green atmosphere of the Zareth homeworld. From orbit, the planet looked beautiful, a mix of deep forests and glowing rivers. But as they landed on the dark metal platform of the Zareth Council Hall, Ryan felt the temperature drop. The air was heavy, filled with the smell of iron and heat. Inside the grand chamber, the Zareth Council waited. Their leader, Lord Zaroth, stood tall above them all, his eyes gleaming with cold amusement. "Humans," he said, his voice deep and echoing. "You come again with your words of peace." Olivia stepped forward, her translator device humming softly. "We come with hope for a future where our people can coexist," she said. "We wish to build understanding and share knowledge." Zaroth's lips curled into something like a smile. "Understanding," he repeated. "Your kind speaks of peace, yet your ships patrol near our borders. You expand, you mine, you spread. You call it peace, but we see conquest." Ryan clenched his fists but stayed silent. He knew this was part of the game. The talks lasted for hours. Ryan and Olivia tried to explain that humanity wanted cooperation, not domination. But each word seemed to make the Zareth more irritated. When Ryan mentioned the destroyed convoy, Zaroth tilted his head. "Perhaps your ships were in places they should not have been," he said. "The stars belong to those strong enough to hold them." Ryan felt anger rise in him but forced himself to stay calm. "Strength means nothing if it destroys everything in its path," he said. Zaroth's expression darkened. "We will see whose path ends first." When the meeting ended, Ryan and Olivia walked back to the Horizon in silence. The alien guards watched them closely. Olivia looked pale. "He knows about the convoy," she whispered. "He's taunting us." Ryan nodded. "He wanted to see if we'd break. He wanted us to look weak." Once aboard the ship, Ryan sent a report to the United Council. He explained that the talks were going badly, and that the Zareth seemed to be preparing for war. The Council's reply was calm as always. "Continue diplomacy. Do not provoke. Peace must be preserved." Ryan read the message twice, feeling a deep frustration. Peace meant everything to him. But sometimes peace was just a word people used when they were too afraid to fight. Days passed with no progress. The Zareth delayed every meeting, sending excuses about internal matters. Their ships began to move closer to human borders. On the horizon, the crew grew restless. One evening, as Ryan reviewed data logs, Nora rushed in. "Commander, We've just received an emergency signal from the Andorra colony. They're under attack. Ryan stood up. By who? They say it's the Zareth. The words hung in the air. Ryan's mind raced. The Zareth had promised peace talks, yet now they were striking human settlements. Get me a secure line to Earth, he ordered. When the transmission connected, the Council's holographic image flickered before him. Commander Cole, said Counselor Marin, her face calm but her eyes filled with worry. We've received the same report. We are verifying it. Do not retaliate until we confirm. Ryan could hardly believe what he was hearing. They're killing civilians, he said. We can't just wait. You must, Marin replied. If we fire first, peace will be impossible. The line went dead. Ryan slammed his hand against the console. Peace is already impossible, he muttered. Hours later, the truth arrived. The Andorra colony was gone. 2,000 people dead. The Zareth denied responsibility, claiming it was an internal rebellion. The Council hesitated again, refusing to declare war. On the horizon, silence filled the air. The crew looked to Ryan for answers, but he had none. Olivia finally spoke. Maybe peace was never possible with them. Maybe we've been trying to reason with a predator. Ryan said nothing. He walked back to the observation deck and stared out at the stars. They no longer looked peaceful. They looked cold and distant like a graveyard. The following morning, Ryan received a message from Earth. The Council was recalling the horizon. The mission was deemed unsuccessful. As the ship prepared to leave Zareth space, Ryan looked once more at the alien world below. He knew this wasn't the end. Something inside him had changed. Humanity had offered peace, and the Zareth had answered with blood. He didn't know what would come next, but he felt it deep in his bones. One day the stars would burn again, and this time, Earth would not be the one begging for peace. The horizon drifted in silence through the black sea of space, carrying with it the weight of failure. Commander Ryan Cole stood on the bridge, staring at the distant glow of Earth on the screen. The recall order had been clear, but his thoughts were clouded. Peace had failed. The Zareth had struck without warning, and thousands were dead. The Council still refused to call it war. They said there was still a chance for diplomacy. Ryan no longer believed them. Olivia Brooks sat beside him, her hands clasped together. She looked tired, her usual calm replaced with quiet anger. They're lying, she said. The Zareth destroyed Andorra. They want to break us, and the Council just watches. Ryan nodded slowly. They think if they wait long enough, the Zareth will stop. But predators don't stop when you run. They follow until you're gone. A sudden beep broke the silence. Nora Kent turned from the controls. Commander, incoming transmission. It's from the Mars Station Command. Ryan stepped forward. The image flickered, showing Admiral Pierce's grim face. Commander Cole, you need to hear this. We've intercepted a Zareth fleet moving toward Mars orbit. Hundreds of ships. They're not answering hails. Ryan felt a chill run through him. What's Earth's response? Pierce's expression darkened. The Council still insists on negotiation. They've ordered all fleets to stand down. We're on our own. The line cut off as alarms blared through the horizon. Olivia looked at Ryan. They're going to hit Mars. He didn't answer. He was already moving. Set course for Mars, maximum speed. The horizon jumped into faster-than-light travel. The stars stretched into streaks of light as the engines roared. The crew moved quickly, preparing for what they all knew was coming. Ryan stood at the center of the bridge, his voice steady but filled with tension. We're not waiting for orders. If Mars falls, Earth is next. We do what we can, Olivia nodded. I'll send a message to the other colonies, warn them. The air hummed with energy as the ship tore through space. Hours later, Mars appeared on the main screen, glowing red and silent. The moment they dropped out of warp, the battlefield came into view. The Zareth fleet was already there, dark and massive, firing streams of plasma into the orbital defenses. Explosions lit up the void. Ryan ordered the horizon to engage. Target the nearest Zareth cruiser. Divert all power to shields. Nora guided the ship through a storm of enemy fire weaving between debris and shattered satellites. The horizon's cannons roared, striking the alien vessel with bursts of light. The bridge shook, lights flickering as energy blasts slammed into their hull. Shields at 60%, Nora shouted. We can't take much more. Ryan gritted his teeth. Keep firing. If we go down fighting. But the battle was hopeless. The Zareth fleet was too large, too organized. One by one, the human defense stations fell. Mars's orbit burned with wreckage. The horizon was hit again. Metal screamed as alarms wailed. "We've lost engine control," Nora called out. "We're going down." The ship plunged toward the surface, flames licking its sides. Ryan shouted for everyone to brace for impact. The horizon crashed into the red sands near a broken colony dome, sending clouds of dust into the air. For a long moment there was only silence. Then slowly the sound of groaning metal and coughing voices filled the wreck. Ryan forced himself up, his head throbbing. "Report," Olivia's voice came weakly from nearby. "Still here. Some of the crew didn't make it." Ryan looked around the shattered bridge. Sparks fell from broken panels. They were stranded. He stepped outside, feeling the dry air against his face. In the distance, the sky was lit by fire as the Zareth continued their assault. Mars Station was dying. Hours passed as Ryan and the surviving crew set up a makeshift shelter near the wreck. Olivia worked to repair the communication console, her hands trembling. "If I can get this working, maybe we can reach Earth." Ryan nodded, scanning the horizon. They could hear the faint echoes of distant battles like thunder rolling across the planet. Suddenly, the console beeped. "Got something," Olivia said. A static-filled voice came through. "This is Earth Command. All remaining units on Mars, evacuate if possible. Mars Station has fallen. Repeat, Mars Station has fallen." The message repeated once before the signal died. Olivia looked up at Ryan. "They're gone." Ryan felt the words hit like a punch. He looked at the dark horizon, where flames danced across the sand. So that's it. Peace is dead. The survivors gathered that night around a small fire. The cold Martian wind whispered across the desert. Nora sat beside Ryan, her uniform torn. "What happens now?" she asked quietly. Ryan stared at the flames. "Now we survive. And then we make sure the Zareth remember this day." Olivia looked up from the radio she was fixing. "Even if the Council doesn't fight back?" Ryan's eyes were hard. "Then we fight without them." He stood and looked at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Zareth were celebrating their victory. But they didn't understand humans. They didn't understand what happened when humanity was pushed too far. The next morning, a small transport ship appeared over the horizon. It was damaged but still flying. A voice crackled through their radio. "This is Captain Elias from the colony transport New Dawn. We picked up your distress signal. We can take survivors." Ryan smiled faintly for the first time in days. "We're ready. Get us off this rock." Hours later, as the New Dawn lifted into orbit, Ryan looked down at Mars one last time. The red planet burned, covered in smoke and ruin. It had been humanity's first step beyond Earth, and now it was a graveyard. He turned to Olivia. "They think they've won." "They don't know what's coming," Olivia nodded. "They'll learn." When they reached Earth orbit, the damage was worse than Ryan imagined. The Council fleets were in disarray, communications broken across the colonies. Protests and riots spread across the cities as people demanded action. The Council chambers were filled with fear and confusion. Ryan was called to a meeting the moment he landed. The Council members sat around a long table, faces pale and uncertain. Councillor Marin spoke first. "Commander Cole, we received your reports. The situation has been catastrophic, but we cannot act without full confirmation that the Zareth are responsible." Ryan stared at her in disbelief. "You need confirmation? Mars is gone. Millions are dead. How much more do you need?" Another counselor tried to calm him. "We must consider all options before declaring war. If we act rashly, we could doom ourselves." Ryan's voice rose. "We're already doomed if we do nothing." The room fell silent. After the meeting, Olivia found Ryan standing alone outside the council hall. She could see the anger in his eyes. "They'll never change," she said softly. Ryan didn't look at her. "No, but we will." He walked away, his footsteps echoing down the long corridor. That night, as he sat in his quarters, he received a message from an old friend in the military. It was short and encrypted. "There's a plan, a way to fight back. Not official, not approved, but real." Ryan read it twice, then closed the message. Outside his window, the lights of Earth flickered like distant stars. He knew what he had to do. Humanity had tried peace. Now it was time for something else. The news of Mars falling spread through the human colonies like a wave of fire. People were afraid, angry, and desperate. Protests filled the streets of Earth's great cities. Every screen showed the same question. How could peace fail so completely? Commander Ryan Cole watched the chaos from his quarters in the military complex near the Atlantic base. He had tried to speak to the council again, but they had stopped answering his messages. They said he had done enough, that he should rest, but Ryan could not rest. He thought about the people who had died on Mars, the families who never got the chance to flee. The Zareth had shown no mercy, and now the council was doing nothing. The message he had received from his old friend still echoed in his mind. There's a plan, a way to fight back, not official, not approved, but real. He had been thinking about it for days. He knew what it meant. Somewhere out there, others like him were preparing to take matters into their own hands. That night he met with Captain Nora Kent and Dr. Olivia Brooks in a small hangar near the base. The lights were dim. Outside rain fell softly against the metal walls. Nora looked at Ryan and nodded. "You're really going through with this," she said. Ryan nodded. "The council will never fight. They're too afraid. If we wait for them, there won't be anything left to protect." Olivia looked uncertain. "You're talking about rebellion." Ryan shook his head. "I'm talking about survival." He showed them the encrypted message. It was sent from an old military contact, Daniel Price, who had once been part of the Defense Division. Daniel had disappeared years ago after speaking against the Council's peace policies. Now he was calling for help. "He's building something," Ryan said. "A new defense force, hidden from the Council. He calls it Operation Resolve." They agreed to go. 2 days later, under the cover of night, they left Earth in a small transport ship. The stars stretched before them as they flew beyond the radar lines. Their destination was an old shipyard on the edge of Jupiter's orbit, a place abandoned after the first interstellar wars. When they arrived, they saw it was no longer abandoned. Massive hangars glowed with light. Ships were being built, repaired, and armed. Thousands of engineers worked day and night. Ryan felt a surge of hope he hadn't felt in years. At the center of it all stood Daniel Price, older now, his face lined with years of struggle. When he saw Ryan, he smiled faintly. "I knew you'd come." Ryan stepped forward. "You said you had a plan." Daniel nodded. "We do. Operation Resolve is the last line of defense. We're bringing back the old fleets, the ones the Council ordered to be dismantled. We're rebuilding them in secret. The Zareth think humanity is broken. We're going to prove them wrong." Ryan walked through the massive hangar, his eyes taking in the scale of the operation. Rows of battleships rested on magnetic docks, their hulls dark and silent but ready to wake again. Engineers moved like shadows, welding armor and installing new systems. Daniel explained that hidden colonies and rogue scientists had joined them after losing faith in the Council. "We've been gathering what we can," he said. "Old designs, hidden resources, anything that still works. It's not enough to win a war yet, but it's a start." Olivia studied the ships with quiet awe. "You're doing all this without the Council knowing." Daniel smiled grimly. "The Council stopped protecting us a long time ago. We protect ourselves now." Over the following weeks, Ryan and his team became part of the effort. Nora trained new pilots, teaching them how to handle the heavy gunships. Olivia worked on communications, helping to develop a new language encryption that the Zareth could not break. Ryan met with Daniel every night to plan strategies, knowing that time was short. The Zareth were moving again, attacking small outposts and trade routes. Every day the news grew worse. But for the first time, humanity was preparing to fight back. Late one night, Ryan stood alone by one of the half-finished ships. It was an old war cruiser, its name barely visible under layers of dust. He placed his hand on the hull and whispered, "We tried peace. You didn't listen. Now you'll see who we really are." When the first fleet was ready, Daniel called a meeting. Representatives from every hidden colony gathered in the command hall. The air was thick with tension. Daniel stood before them, his voice steady. "The Zareth believe we're weak. They believe we will never rise again. They're wrong. Today we begin the fight for every world they've burned, for every life they've taken. This is not a war of conquest. It's a war of survival." Ryan stepped forward beside him. "The Council may not stand with us, but humanity does. They've taken our peace. Now we'll take back the stars." The room filled with quiet determination. They were soldiers, engineers, and civilians, but they all shared the same fire. Soon after, the fleet launched its first mission. A small Zareth outpost near the outer rim was chosen as the target. Ryan led the attack from the front, commanding the cruiser Aurora. Nora piloted a fighter wing, while Olivia stayed on the communication deck guiding the operation. The fleet moved silently through the void, undetected until the moment they struck. The battle was swift and brutal. The Zareth ships were caught off guard. Human ships moved with precision, striking their weak points. Explosions lit up the dark. For the first time since Mars, the Zareth retreated. The crew of the Aurora cheered as the enemy ships fled into the distance. Ryan's voice came through the intercom. "Message to all units. This is for Andorra. This is for Mars. We are not broken." The victory spread quickly through the human colonies. People who had lost hope began to believe again. They called Ryan's group the Defiant Fleet. The Council could no longer ignore them. Messages from Earth demanded explanations, but Ryan refused to answer. The fleet moved constantly, striking Zareth supply lines and freeing captured outposts. Each victory brought new recruits. Humanity was waking up, but Ryan knew the Zareth would not stay silent for long. He had seen their strength. He knew they would return in force. One evening, as the fleet regrouped near the asteroid belt, Olivia approached Ryan on the command deck. She looked tired but proud. "You've started something no one can stop now," she said. Ryan nodded. "It's not about me. It's about them. The people who believed peace would protect them. The ones who lost everything. We fight for them." Olivia looked out at the stars. "Do you think the Council will ever understand?" Ryan shook his head. "Maybe one day, but by then it won't matter." A few days later, Ryan sent a transmission across the entire human network. His face appeared on every screen, his voice calm but firm. "To all human colonies, to every world that still stands, we tried peace. We offered friendship. But our kindness was taken for weakness. No more. Today humanity stands as one. We will not bow. We will not beg. If the Zareth want war, they'll see the side of us they've never known." The message spread faster than light, carried through every channel, echoed in every home. Even the Zareth heard it. It was the message that changed everything. For the first time, the galaxy understood that the age of peace had ended and that humanity had awakened. The war had begun, and there was no turning back. The Defiant Fleet had struck the first real blow, and the Zareth were no longer silent. Across the galaxy, their fleets began to move like dark storms, swallowing everything in their path. Commander Ryan Cole stood on the bridge of the Aurora watching reports come in from all fronts. Some colonies were holding, but others were burning. The Council had finally declared war, but their fleets were scattered and disorganized. Ryan knew that humanity could not fight this war the old way. The Zareth had power, but humans had something else. They had history. They had survived worse before. He turned to Captain Nora Kent, who was checking the combat readouts. "How many ships are ready for the next strike?" he asked. Nora wiped sweat from her brow. 67. Maybe less if the repairs don't finish in time." Ryan nodded. "That will have to do." In the lower decks, Olivia Brooks worked with the communication teams. She had cracked several Zareth communication codes using her own algorithms. The Zareth used a layered system of signals hidden within their energy transmissions, but Olivia had learned to hear the patterns that machines missed. When she brought her findings to Ryan, he listened carefully. "If we can hear them, we can see them before they strike," she said. Ryan smiled for the first time in days. "Then let's make sure they never see us coming." Soon the fleet began to use the intercepted codes to set traps. Human ships appeared out of nowhere, hitting supply lines and command centers. Each victory was small, but it mattered. For the first time, the Zareth fleets were forced to retreat. The fighting spread to every corner of known space. In the orbit of Titan, human fighters weaved through the clouds of debris, striking Zareth carriers before vanishing again. In the ruins of Mars underground, teams used hidden weapons to destroy invading patrols. Daniel Price coordinated the defenses from the secret base near Jupiter. His calm voice on the communication channel kept everyone steady. "Remember why we fight," he would say. "Not for revenge. For survival." But deep down, Ryan knew that revenge was part of it. Every time he saw another report of a destroyed colony, he felt the same cold anger tighten in his chest. The Zareth had to pay. Weeks turned into months, and the war began to change. Humanity learned faster than anyone expected. They adapted. They built new weapons using the wreckage of Zareth technology. Engineers created energy shields that bent light, making ships nearly invisible. Soldiers on the ground learned to use the environment against their enemies. The Zareth, who once saw humans as weak, began to realize they were facing something far worse. They were facing a species that refused to die. Ryan's fleet pushed deeper into Zareth territory, striking targets that had never been touched before. Each time they returned home, they carried stories of survival and defiance. People began to believe that victory was possible. One night, as the Aurora drifted in silent orbit above a captured Zareth world, Ryan met with Olivia in the observation bay. The planet below glowed faintly with blue light from the destroyed cities. Olivia stared at it quietly. "We've become what they feared," she said. "We've become the side of humanity they never wanted to see." Ryan looked at her and nodded. Maybe that's the only side they understand. She turned to him. "Do you ever wonder if peace will be possible again?" Ryan took a deep breath. Maybe one day, but not now. Not while they still breathe. The silence between them was heavy, but there was no regret. They both knew what had to be done. The Zareth struck back harder than ever. Their main fleets began to attack key human worlds. Earth itself came under threat. The Defiant fleet was recalled to defend the home system. When Ryan returned to Earth orbit, the sight stunned him. Massive defense platforms circled the planet, firing beams of light into the darkness where hundreds of Zareth ships advanced. The sky above Earth was filled with fire. Nora guided the Aurora through the chaos, dodging plasma bursts. "We've got enemy cruisers at 2,000 kilometers, she shouted. Ryan gave the order to fire. The Aurora's cannons lit up the void. Explosions bloomed like dying stars. The battle raged for hours. Every loss hurt, but no one backed down. Humanity was fighting with everything it had. During the height of the battle, Olivia managed to intercept a transmission from the Zareth command. The message was short but clear. They were planning a full assault on Earth's surface. Ryan gathered his officers. "If they land, we lose everything," he said. "We stop them here." The Aurora and several other ships broke formation, diving straight into the enemy line. The shock maneuver caught the Zareth off guard. The humans fought like nothing the aliens had ever seen. They rammed enemy ships. They detonated their own reactors to take out entire fleets. The cost was terrible, but it worked. One by one, the Zareth vessels fell silent until only wreckage remained. The space around Earth became a field of broken ships. When the battle ended, Ryan looked around at the silent screens. The crew was exhausted but alive. Nora leaned against her chair, breathing heavily. "We did it," she said softly. Ryan nodded. "For now." Earth was safe, but the war was far from over. The Zareth still held many worlds, and their command fleet was still out there. Yet for the first time since the war began, the humans had stood their ground and won. Across the planet, people cheered as the news spread. The Council broadcast messages of unity and courage, but those who had fought knew the truth. It was not the Council that had saved Earth. It was the ordinary men and women who refused to surrender. Days later, Ryan met with Daniel and Olivia in the ruins of the old lunar base. They were planning the next phase of the war. Daniel placed a map of the stars on the table. "Their command fleet is here," he said, pointing to a cluster of red lights near the edge of the chart. "If we take that system, we end this war." Ryan studied the map. "It won't be easy," Daniel nodded. "It never is." Olivia looked at both of them. "Then we do it together." Ryan smiled faintly. Together. They shook hands. Outside the windows of the base, the Earth rose over the lunar horizon, shining bright and blue against the darkness. It was a symbol of everything they were fighting for. As preparations began for the final offensive, Ryan sent another message to the galaxy. His voice was calm but strong. "This is Commander Ryan Cole of the Defiant Fleet. To all who still stand with humanity, we are not finished. The Zareth wanted us to kneel, but we stand. They wanted us silent, but we speak. They wanted peace on their terms, but now they will know ours. We tried peace. You chose war. Now you will face the other side of humanity." The message echoed across every channel and every world. Soldiers listened to it in silence. Civilians watched with tears in their eyes. Even the Zareth heard it, and for the first time they hesitated. Humanity was no longer the fragile race they once believed. It was something stronger, something relentless. The war was far from over, but the future now belonged to those who refused to give up. The war entered its final stage. Years had passed since the fall of Mars and the first strike of the Defiant Fleet. Humanity had changed. The cities on Earth were rebuilt with walls of steel and glass. The factories of the colonies burned day and night, creating ships and weapons. There were no more arguments in the Council. The people had taken control. The fleets moved as one under the command of those who had fought and bled. Commander Ryan Cole stood in the war room aboard the Aurora, staring at a map of stars filled with red and blue lights. Every red light was a Zareth world. Soon they would all be gone. Olivia Brooks entered carrying a small tablet. Her face was calm, but her eyes showed the weight of years. "We've confirmed their main fleet is in the Valise system," she said. Ryan looked at her and nodded slowly. "Then that's where it ends." Captain Nora Kent joined them a moment later. Her uniform was marked with scars and burns from battles survived. "All ships are ready," she said. "We have more than 400 vessels. Every colony sent something." Ryan smiled faintly. "Then let's show them what humanity looks like when it fights together." He turned to the communication console and sent a message to the fleet. "This is Commander Cole. Today we finish what they started. We fought for peace. We fought for survival. Now we fight for every soul they took from us. Remember Mars. Remember Andorra. Remember why we stand." His words carried through every ship. The crew stood ready. Some prayed. Some whispered names of those they had lost. The fleet began to move. The journey to the Valise system took several days. As they neared the enemy's territory, the silence grew heavier. The Zareth had gathered everything they had left. Thousands of ships surrounded their homeworld, forming a ring of fire in space. When the Aurora dropped out of warp, Ryan saw the massive fleet waiting. It was like staring into a wall of darkness lit by red energy. "We're outnumbered 3-1, Nora said quietly. Ryan didn't blink. "Then we make every shot count." The battle began when the first human missiles streaked through the void. The Zareth answered with waves of plasma that turned space into a storm of light. The two forces collided in chaos. Ships exploded. Debris scattered across the stars. The noise of the alarms filled every corridor of the Aurora. Ryan moved through the bridge shouting orders. "Keep the formation tight. Focus fire on their command ships." Nora guided the Aurora through enemy lines, weaving between burning wrecks. Olivia worked at the communication desk, intercepting enemy signals and sending false orders into their ranks. "They're breaking formation," she called out. "It's working," Ryan nodded. "Keep pushing." For hours the battle raged with no end in sight. The human fleet was smaller but faster and more united. Every time a ship fell, another took its place. The Zareth fought with fury but without understanding. They could not grasp why humans refused to give up. In the middle of the fight, a Zareth dreadnought appeared from the shadows. It was larger than anything they had seen before, a monster of metal and light. Its main cannon charged, glowing like a star about to explode. Nora's eyes widened. "If that fires, it'll wipe out half the fleet." Ryan made a quick decision. "Bring us in close." The crew stared at him in shock. "Sir, that's suicide," Nora said. Ryan's voice was steady. "It's what we have to do." The Aurora turned sharply and accelerated straight toward the dreadnought. Enemy fire struck their hull, tearing through the armor, but the ship kept going. Olivia sent one last coded message to the fleet. "All units target the dreadnought. Follow the Aurora's lead." The Aurora flew closer until the massive ship filled the screen. Ryan stood at the command console, his hand hovering over the final command. "For Earth," he whispered. The ship's engines flared as it fired every weapon at once. The dreadnought's shields began to crack. At the same moment, Ryan ordered the energy core to overload. "Evacuate now," he shouted. "Get to the escape pods." The crew hesitated but obeyed. Olivia stayed behind for a moment. "You're not coming, are you?" Ryan shook his head. "Someone has to make sure it works." She looked at him for a long second, then nodded. "Goodbye, Ryan." She ran toward the pod bay. When the last escape pod launched, the Aurora was alone. The dreadnought fired one last desperate beam as the Aurora's core went critical. The explosion lit up the entire system. When the light faded, both ships were gone. The blast tore through the enemy fleet, destroying hundreds of Zareth ships and shattering their formation. The human fleet pressed forward, taking advantage of the chaos. Nora, now in command of one of the smaller cruisers, led the counterattack. "For Ryan," she said quietly as her ship fired into the enemy lines. Hours later, the last Zareth vessel was destroyed. Silence fell over the battlefield. The war was over. Weeks passed as the survivors returned to Earth. The planet was scarred but free. The people filled the streets again, not in fear but in pride. Olivia returned too, her heart heavy but at peace. She carried with her the final message Ryan had recorded before the battle. The council asked her to broadcast it to the entire galaxy. She stood before the transmitter in the rebuilt council hall and pressed play. Ryan's face appeared on every screen across the stars. His voice was calm and steady. "To all who hear this, Humanity came in peace. We offered friendship. We offered understanding. But when peace was broken, we did not fall. We rose, we fought, we endured. This message is not a threat. It is a promise. Remember what happened when you mistook our kindness for weakness. Remember that behind our peace there is strength. We are humanity and we will always stand. The message ended and silence followed. No one spoke for a long time. In the years that followed, the Zareth were never seen again. Their empire collapsed, their worlds abandoned. The galaxy entered a new age of cautious peace. The human colonies rebuilt and expanded once more. New alliances were formed not out of fear but respect. Statues were built to honor those who had fallen. One stood in the center of the new capital city on Earth. It showed a man in uniform looking up at the stars. Beneath it were the words, "We tried peace. Now you'll face the other side of humanity." Olivia often visited the statue. She would stand there in silence, remembering the man who had changed everything. She would look at the stars and whisper softly, "We did it." And somewhere in the endless darkness of space, it felt as if the stars whispered back,